interview with photographer Mark Weiss. You can listen to excerpts from this interview at fullandbloom.com. You got a new book, The Decade That Rocked. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about that.
It's just a book I started putting together 5 years ago. It's a narrative. Talks about first chapter, the early years, how I got my first camera, and first 10, 15 pages, it shows some photographs kind of leading up to the 80s where I kind of honed in on hard rock and metal. I've shot other bands as well, you know, The Cure, Tom Petty, The Stones, and Blondie, and pop bands, but I wanted this book to be representative of the music that I liked and the music that kind of I honed my craft with, which was that kind of music. It's really focused on hard rock and heavy metal from 1980 to 1990. So there's about 390 pages of that following the early chapters. And each chapter opens up on a year. I had to do it systematically or I would never would have got it done. Each chapter opens up with some laminates, some photos of me with the bands, some smaller photos in a slide format, you know, to show some of that old school, how we used to take photos, and then a fan photo, and every year. Then it goes into the year of shoots that had something to do with me and my career. There are shoots that mean something to me or have something historic like the WASP Festival or Live Aid or Moscow Peace Festival, PMRC hearings, Hearing Aid, Live Aid. And then it's got pages in between of album cover shoots in detail, photos that weren't seen before that I haven't even seen until I just kind of dug a little bit deeper, and a lot of photos in between. Most of them are, have some kind of memory and some kind of reason why I put it in the book, as opposed to just putting a photo of a band in, because it's a good photo.
It's got to be just incredibly hard to narrow the photos down, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was overwhelming. I never thought I could do it. It literally took 5 years to do. It was very difficult, but I had to start somewhere, and I started. We kind of finished the book 3 years ago, and then the publisher or the editor, the main editor, looked at it and said, no, this isn't the way we want to do. We want a different direction. So we got a different designer, and we kind of started not from scratch, but, we had the blueprints of it. We designed a 600-page book, which was only supposed to be less than 300. And then we took those 600 pages and then we narrowed it down. And that was the most difficult thing to do, is like figure out what's what. The book is really focused onto the genre of music, which it's hard rock, heavy metal, hair metal, melodic metal. Pretty much, anyone from the 80s, you'll like every band that's in there. It's not like you're going to have a page that you're not going to like or a memory you're not going to appreciate.
Is the book out?
Yeah, it came out on June 2nd. A week from today it came out. And unfortunately, it came out on Black Tuesday, the night before the release of my book that I've been waiting so long for, because of the riots and all that, because of the shooting, because of the killing of George Floyd. It affected the release, not the release of the book, but we did a blackout. So all the music community wasn't going to conduct any business. So it's like I was supposed to be on Eddie Trunk's show and celebrate the release of my book. It was hard enough with the pandemic, but things were kind of getting a little as normal as it could. And then unfortunately, George Floyd got killed and everything turned around, and I respectfully, bowed out of the interview. I'm going to actually be doing it next Monday, actually. Even with that and the social media blackout, I did a lot of prep with a lot of the bands. Ozzy posted links to buy my book, and Rob Halford and Dio and really Dokken, all my friends, Sebastian did a nice little unveiling and created a little bit of buzz. And I've been working really hard with the social media, which I've never really done before. I've tinkled in it a little bit, but I never really went like 24/7, and I had no choice. My plan at this point was to be going on the road with my girlfriend and in a Winnebago, get some corporate sponsorships, and then kind of like shadow some of the bands that were playing, from clubs to small theaters to arenas to stadiums. And, bands that were involved in my book, and kind of going in the day before, promoting the tour and also promoting my record, my book.
Yeah,
and
doing like a book tour.
Doing book signings and galleries, getting involved with some local charities, and then hopping on another tour and taking pictures at the same time, so I don't get, too bored and doing the same thing. So I was really looking forward to this summer, but it's working out. We're already talking about do a second pressing. Insight was very, blown away. I got a call today and they were like, this thing's really flying off the shelves. CNN gave me the top 3 things to buy for your dad on Father's Day. The Washington Post did a double-page color spread in their Sunday paper last week.
How cool is that?
A lot of stuff's going on, a lot of mainstream that I wasn't expecting. It's a little bit of feel good, which is much needed.
I'm assuming it's on Amazon and everywhere and on your website.
You can get it on Amazon. It might be $5 cheaper on Amazon than it is on my website. My website, I give for $50. I'll give like 10 postcards, my rock cards in there, and it's free shipping too for just the book, not signed. And then if you want it signed, it's like $65, but you get postcards too. And then I have bundles and I have prints that I can add to it. So there's different packages. And then also on my thedecadethatrocked.com, I have a lot of interviews talking about me and the era, the decade, short 5 to 15-minute interviews. A lot of artists, Steve Vai and Sebastian and Zach and, a lot of different people, maybe 20 or 30 people. And then there's other things on there too. I have, like I mentioned earlier, that I have fan pictures representing in the book. I love fans. I love shooting them. I always did. I still do. And my website on the home page, if you scroll down, a page is called Fanatic. And I put a picture of one of the chapter openers on there now, and it's from the Def Leppard show, these 3 girls. And I'm spreading the word. I'm having a contest. If you can identify yourself in that photo, I'll give you that photo and also a photo from the show that, I sign my photos, gallery prints that I sell them for like $1,000. So if they can identify themselves, they'll get a free photo. It's 30 years, 35 years, almost 40 years. It's just fun to connect with people from back then.
Anything else you want to plug on the book before we move on?
Well, I'm pushing I have my Mark Weiss photography pages on Instagram and Facebook, but I also have, I just started new pages called The Decade That Rocked and The Decade That Rocked on Instagram. I'm coming up with a clothing line with rock stars on the front, and I'm just, I just want to build that brand up and encourage people to follow me on those sites and on, Mark Weiss photography too.
Okay. And then what about the Weiss guy?
The Weiss guy is an episodic adventure of sex, drugs, and rock and roll where these 2 guys, Creeper and Jesse, are in hunt of the Weiss guy, me, and these guys are like rock fans from the 80s. It's a short episodic movie-ish. It's a playoff of a movie that I was in with them called Gone for the Weekend that's on Amazon Prime. And it's all rock and roll, and they follow me around. And in this first episode, Brian Wheat from Tesla's in it, where they sneak on the bus, and then we have a graduation party for one of my children, and they crash the party, and I had a hair band playing it, and they were like kind of snooping around. There's like a fantasy scene, and Chips Enough's in it, and where he actually sings Fly High Michelle. And it's just a fun kind of, like I said, like fun kind of party movie that's, it's kind of just a no-brainer kind of thing, just fun to watch. So we're developing that. We were doing flashback scenes when the pandemic hit, so we are going to have to still shoot it, but I wanted to put it out there and just get the feelers out. And that's on my YouTube channel, The Decade That Rocked. So I have a lot of interviews on The Decade That Rocked as well.
It looked like you're using a Canon. I don't really know shit about cameras, but I just ask anybody about their gear. What's your preferred camera?
I just have a bunch of Canons, the digitals, the 5. I don't even know what they're. I'm not a technical guy, but I have a 60, 70, I guess, and a Mark 5. It's like whatever the latest camera there with the most megapixels is the way to go. You can either go full frame like the Mark V, or you go the other route where it's it zooms in everything a little bit. So they both have a purpose.
Describe a typical work week for you, say back at the height of the 80s.
It's kind of a blur, but it was pretty much, I would have a studio in New York. Bands would come over to the studio, and I'd do a photo shoot. Again, archive, edit photos. Bands would play. I was right in New York City, so there's a lot going on. I'd go and jump on different tours, and then I'd, go to events, go to California a lot. Done a lot of video shoots. So I'm just it was pretty much nonstop. Album covers when I got that, a lot of preparation for it. It was just a nonstop, no chance to breathe kind of decade.
And then when you are on tour with a band, what time do you start? What time do you go to bed?
I just follow whatever the band sets. They go to sleep, I go to sleep. When they party, I party. When they go on stage, I'll go on stage.
You typically get up at like 4 in the afternoon or what?
Not really. Because there's a lot to do with a day of a show because usually everyone sleeps on the bus, and gets to the next town and, maybe we'll get up at 10, 11 o'clock or earlier or later, depending on when the sound check is. And I usually like to get off the bus pretty quick and just go for the catering, always waiting for it.
Tell me about that early Motley Crue photo shoot for WE magazine. How did that come about?
I was shooting for this magazine called Cherry Magazine, which was like a men's magazine, and me and their mascot, Rusty, I used to go around the world taking pictures of naked girls at little contests and things. And then they had a music section where she interviewed rock stars like Ted Nugent. And then the publisher bought WE magazine, which was owned by Playboy at the time. And it was a little step up from Cherry. We just started shooting rock stars and naked women. We wanted to do a concept with that. And then we started doing that with Michael Kirk. Her boyfriend's name was Michael, and he ended up being the music editor for WE. And we became best friends. And then, it was just a lot of fun. A lot of bands wanted to be in it, of course, because there's naked women. And it was all tasteful, just boobs, nothing crazy. We did Motorhead, Joe Perry. We did Ozzy and Motley Crue. Motley Crue was one of the first ones, 1982, and Nicky even still talks about it and gives us a quote saying that shoot kind of defined who we were. And people look at that shoot and said, oh, that must have been a fun shoot. And I think Nicky's response was, well, that was our everyday life. Mark just happened to be there, and put it together. For a first photo to be out there in national press, and that's it. That's Motley Crue. We became immediately very close and got a lot of attention from it, and it kind of grew from there.
Is this the first time you meet them?
Yeah.
Are they signed to Elektra at this point?
Yes.
Because it's a total Too Fast for Love look.
Yeah, it was in between the records, I think. 1982, it was probably right in the middle.
In your book, it looks like some of the costumes are there, but maybe the look isn't quite fine-tuned yet, but it looks just before Shout at the Devil. Nikki Sixx kind of holding up the horns and definitely looks like right before Shout at the Devil.
That was 83, and they were changing a little bit there. It wasn't a lot of makeup, but there was a lot of hair, obviously. And, that's when they were just, again, that was probably an in-between time. I think I was in LA, and I was in like a big setup. Like, the following tour, we started doing elaborate shoots like them with the Rolls Royce and the gangster outfits and all the glam look. Nicky was always, changing. Every couple of years, he didn't stick to one thing. It's kind of like David Bowie, he kept creating something new and different.
How would you describe him at that time?
Kind of sure of himself, knew what he wanted, very confident, fun, like to have fun, party, typical rock star stuff.
Is there a reason why you don't do Shout at the Devil, the pictures for that record?
Well, I didn't really I was just starting to know him at that point. Even if I did know him, it's not like I did everyone's album cover. I've done a lot of them. They might want a different style or whatnot. I mean, I try to get through the album covers, and obviously I did a good job trying to, keep it with a lot of the bands, but we're like producers, like bands use different producers on different records. Sometimes they use the same producer. Sometimes they want to try something else out. They're creative people and they want to be around different creative people. So I try to hold on to it as long as I can. I don't like letting anything go.
It looked like you did the photos for Theater of Pain. At least you did some posters, I remember.
I didn't do the cover, but I did the tour book and the promotional posters and publicity photos.
I'm just curious, what would qualify as the grossest thing that Motley Crue ever did around you?
There was a club in New York City in the Limelight, and there was a party. I forget who the party was for, but Ozzy was there with Motley Crue. And Tommy pulled down his pants and bent over, and he put a cigarette in his ass, and then I think Ozzy grabbed it and smoked it or something like that.
Oh, my God. What about a funniest moment?
Probably when I was fishing with Vince Neil. We went fishing, and I never fished before, and he helped me out putting the bait on, and I caught something, and what I caught was smaller than the bait, and he took a picture of me with it. We were cracking up. It's like, couldn't believe it.
Is that where the Nikki Sixx and Tommy Lee photo outside, where their backs are up together in your book? Is that where that was taken, or is that a different moment?
No, that was just on the road.
Okay.
That's one of my favorite shots. Yeah. I don't think that even made it in the book, because I wanted it to be like a double page, and we didn't have room for that or something. I don't know.
Yeah, the picture with the fish I didn't see it in there.
Oh, no, the picture of the fish is in there. It's in one of the chapter openers.
Oh, it is? Well, the picture where their backs are to each other is in there.
Oh, it is? Okay, you're right. That's in a chapter opener, though. Yeah, you're right. See, I don't remember things. If you read in page 26, I always refer that whenever I don't remember stuff. I had a motorcycle accident when I was 12, and I lost my memory, and my memory has been the same since. And even now, I don't remember things. I don't remember specific things unless I continually talk about it or live it. That's why all these memories that we're talking about now, it's like, it doesn't come from my memory. It comes from like research and hearing people talk about what happened. That's kind of a reason why this book is important to me, because I feel gypped of my memory, because I'm jealous a lot of people, like, they remember a lot of their experiences. I mean, I don't remember things like a few months ago. I always live for each day, and I try to laugh each day and feel good about each day, and then talk to my friends, and I always like to hear the stories that I was at, and hearing these stories and that I'm involved in. It's kind of trippy, because they're laughing and having fun, and I'm laughing because it's a good story. And it's like, it's funny because it's me that's the funny story, but I don't remember experiencing it.
I'm assuming you were laid up for a while?
Yeah, I had a concussion. I was unconscious for a few days, and I got out of it fine. I was in the hospital for over a month, but I had a broken collarbone and a cheekbone. And at the last day in the hospital, after 6 weeks, they x-rayed my whole body, and I had a broken thumb, so they put a cast on me on the last day. But, I was a mess,
When you came to, you remembered everybody and all that shit, right?
I guess I did. I mean, I don't think I freaked out or anything. I can tell you right now, I don't remember having the accident. My brother found me and told me what happened. I actually remember leaving my house, having a conversation with my father, and that's kind of my last memory there.
Do you have any memories from the US Festival?
It was just a busy time. Funny thing happened with that is Ozzy wore this big headdress with feathers on it that he wore, and Sharon had it shipped to me in New York a few months earlier. They wanted to do a photo shoot. Ozzy, they didn't show up for the photo shoot, and they wanted me to ship the box to California, but before I shipped it, I opened it up to see what it was, because I didn't even know at the time, and then I was curious before I shipped it out, so I looked at it, and it was this big headpiece, so I put it on, and I did photos with it, totally naked. There's a picture of me wearing it in the chapter opener, and I never even showed the picture to Sharon, so the first time she is going to see it is in the book.
That was when he had shaved his head, and he'd come out with it and then take it off?
Yeah.
I always remember my sister saw him somewhere around then when he had shaved his head, and I was too young to really be going to concerts yet. I always remember that story just from her saying, he came out and was like, "You guys ready to get fucking crazy?" And she said he had a wig on, but then he'd like rip it off.
Was she at that show? Where was that?
She wasn't at that show, but it was like a Texas Jam or something. We grew up in Texas. I don't think they were calling it Texas Jam yet. She wasn't an Ozzy fan, and she remembered that.
I was trying. That's in the book. There's a whole feature on that. I was trying to figure out what show that was. If you can try to find out, I'd love to know. If you can narrow it down or has any friends or anything.
It probably will be easy. I'll text it to you. I'll look it up.
Going back on when Ozzy shaved his head, because I was there the night after he shaved it, because I was supposed to do a photo shoot for Circus Magazine for the 13th anniversary, and I had a cake set up, had some a flag with a bat on it, and I got some black balloons. And then I set up the studio in the garage at their house in Beverly Hills. And then Sharon came down and said, Ozzy shaved his head last night. I'm thinking I got to pack up and go home. And she's like, "No, we're going to do something. We'll figure it out." And we put our heads together. And next thing you know, she's painting his head and I'm putting balloons on it. And, it ended up being the cover of Circus.
Did you go out on the Shout at the Devil tour?
What year is that?
83, 84?
Yeah, I mean, here and there. I wouldn't be out traveling with him yet. That wouldn't be until the Ozzy tour that I really went on the bus and did all that stuff with him.
Well, Bark at the Moon, they toured together, at least for part of it.
Oh, you're right. Yeah. Right, and I was traveling with Ozzy at that time.
And then you just kind of shoot Motley, because you have a lot of photos, it seems like, from Shout at the Devil.
Yeah, whenever they would play, I get the years mixed up. What year was Shout at the Devil?
Shout at the Devil came out in '83.
Oh, okay. And then they toured with Ozzy on that.
And it's the same year that Bark at the Moon came out. Yeah, and they toured. That was the big tour. Was the main one. I mean, Ozzy did shows with Rat and I think some other bands.
Right, like 83, 84. It was 84
exactly.
too. I was on that one. That's when I went on their bus and hung out with them for the first time.
Any J.K. Lee stories?
Not really. Just whenever my car broke down in L.A., he would help me out and help me fix it. I had a 240Z out there, and he would, he was the car guy, and he always came and got me and helped me out and stuff. We were good friends.
What's typical backstage protocol at a Motley Crue concert back in the day? What does that environment look like? Could you describe that?
Get ready, prepare beforehand. Most of the time I'll set up a photo studio before they go on, and they go to sound check. They do radio back then. There's a lot of more press to promote, and
up to showtime, are they pretty straight? No drugs, no drinking beforehand?
I don't know. I think everything happens all the time. Depending when and where. It's not like it wasn't really flaunting or anything like that.
Well, of course. You're partying with the bands, though, right? I mean, are you hanging and partying and drinking?
Snorting, all that shit. Not shooting, though. I never did that.
Which I think that came in with the Motley Crue guys on Theater of Pain. Did you notice any difference in them?
No, I must have been oblivious. I know Nikki didn't want me around as much. I really wanted to photograph during that period in the studio. And I was like, come on, you're going to want these photos down the road. And no, dude, don't hassle me. And later on, he wished I was there, because they were shooting up and doing things like that. They didn't want, even though I was a friend, it's not like they didn't want to flaunt either,
There was a great photo in the book. It was with Vince and Nikki and Tom Orman. I mean, speaking of the studio, there is one in the studio, or a couple of studio pics.
Yeah, that was his compromise there. That's the day that I said, hey, let's do some photos. Let me just be a fly on the wall. I wouldn't let up. So he said, just come by and we can. It was kind of like a photo shoot. It wasn't really what I wanted, but it was more of like pretending we're doing things instead of just being there. So they were, I would call that a photo shoot day. So they were on their best behavior.
Is there any story to the photo where Motley Crue's like standing next to some road cases and there's like a chick on each leg? Vince Neil's like stuffing a chick's head into his crotch.
No, I kind of orchestrated that. I pulled the girls from the audience and, asked if they want to be at a photo shoot and meet the band. And we just had some fun.
Were you there for the Too Young to Fall in Love video?
Yeah.
What do you remember about that?
Just a lot of very exotic, creative, made up, different rooms, and it was a field day for me because whenever there was downtime, I would always take pictures and drag the guys and do a photo shoot with each of them. So I always loved shooting my video shoots because of that, and got a lot of good images. But a lot of waiting around. There was actors in that one, just following their script.
When you do those Theater of Pain photos, I believe Vince had his wreck by this point, right?
Yeah, right.
You remember anything about that? Any kind of vibe with the band or how they were doing as a unit?
No, I mean, everything was gradual. I didn't dig that deep into anyone. I just kind of, when I was around, everyone was kind of on their best behavior. They didn't want to let too much out what was going on. But after that, Vince got the crash and he ended up in jail for a few months. I went and visited him, and that's when he said, when he comes out, I want to take you fishing. And that's when we went fishing. And we also did photos at his house, and he wanted to show his fans that he was okay. We spent the day doing photos around his house in the area, down by the beach in the karate outfit. So
I know you did a ton of classic Van Halen photos, but there was a story that I heard about David Lee Roth flying a kite.
Yeah. I got hired by the band to shoot him for a few days, and the manager just said, make yourself available if they want you to shoot them. They want you to shoot something, let them do it. I'm thinking all right, something backstage with their guitars or, little did I know that, I'd get a call from David Lee Roth in the morning saying he wanted me to meet him out outside by the courtyard in the hotel. So when I went down there, he was flying a kite, and I was just kind of watching him fly it. And he's like, "What are you waiting for?" Like start taking pictures. So he had a cigarette in his hand, and he was like, kind of dressed real cool, and then the kite got stuck in the tree, and he was climbing on the security's shoulder to get the kite down, and I was looking over his shoulder to make sure I was taking pictures.
What were the dynamics in the band like at that time? They all seemed like they were good friends?
From what I saw, everyone had their own room at that point. And, we did a band shot. Everyone kind of came together, but not really. I don't think they didn't seem too close at that point towards the end.
Are any other favorite Van Halen moments?
The Lost Weekend was fun. I flew out there with the two kids that won the contest on the plane, and I took them to the show, and then that was crazy because they got girls for them, and they were doing drugs with them. They really fucked them up, and then they take them on stage, and they just 24/7. And I documented all that. It was fun. There's a documentary out there now on that. What he's doing now.
Oh, on one of the kids?
Yeah. They on the main guy, the guy that won the postcard. Yeah, you can Google it. It's like a 30-minute clip.
Did you do the Eat 'em and Smile tour?
No, I just did a few shows. I think Cinderella opened up for him.
I know you did the Night Songs cover, and I saw Tom Kiefer talking about it, how you had set it up for a daytime shoot, and he was like, well, that doesn't really make sense, and you were like, I shoot day for night. And he's like, I still don't know what the fuck he's talking about.
Well, to explain that, when you're I didn't want to shoot. They wanted a nighttime vibe. I knew that, but if we would have shot it at night, we could have. But it was, it just did more difficult. And it doesn't really matter if it's light out because the strobe light is more powerful than the daylight, and it wipes out the daylight, and then so you're in control. So we wanted to shoot at the location, and then I just lit it with gels. I mean, you couldn't see that. It didn't look like that when we were shooting, obviously, but when you click the button and it flashes, you see the smoke come to life and the gels lighting up the smoke, and you get those images. And once I showed him a Polaroid, he looked at it like, how'd you do that? And he still didn't get it. I don't think he still gets it today.
How long does a shoot like that take? Is that like all day, or is that something that bleeds into the next day?
Yeah, that was a whole day.
Okay.
Yeah, the Sister Stay Hungry took 22 hours.
Why did that one take so long?
Well, I had to shoot them without makeup and with makeup in multiple sets, and it was just a tedious shoot, and it was a complicated shoot. I was supposed to shoot both of them in the room, make it look like they were in the room, and a couple of the guys in the band really weren't that cooperative. They were kidding around and giving me the finger, and they just weren't cooperating, and I couldn't really get a good group shot, so I had to keep trying and taking a break, and then once I was done, I said, all right, this is as good as it's gonna get. And I said, yeah, anyone want to stick around and do individuals? And then everyone laughed. They're like, no, we're getting out of here. And Dee said, I'll stick around. And then I threw the bone at him, smelly bone, foul. And he started hitting it in against the walls, and just kind of got the moment. The last frame of the roll of 36, we nailed the photo, and then we sent it into the record company.
I know there are multiple photos where he's holding the bone, but did you know when you saw that, were you like, that's the cover?
I don't recall. I don't remember, to be honest with you.
You find out later that the other guys are pissed because it's just D on the cover.
Right. Well, that has nothing to do with me, but the guys had animosity towards me the years to come because I created this great photo of D, and unfortunately I couldn't create a great shot of them together, which was supposed to be. And it was their fault. They were just goofing around too much. If they would have took Dee's direction, Dee would have I would have got some better images, and maybe we would have had a great band shot, and that could have been the cover. But Dee was kind of holding back because he didn't want to overshadow the band, and he was trying to step back a bit. So it kind of backfired on him.
Any WASP stories? I know you did The Last Command.
Yeah, well, that was just I just did the Stay Hungry one, and Blackie wanted to do a big production, so we brought in like 2 tons of dirt in this recording studio. It was like a big rehearsal studio, and then I got some bones, and we stuck them in. So it really did look like it. Like today, you just do it against a seamless, and you'd create it. Back then, we actually had 2 tons of dirt come in with a dump truck and then put the bones in there. It was quite a setup shot, and then I had the gels, and they had to climb up the mountain, and it was quite a shoot. It was a good vibe. And then you got the flag, set the flag again. I like shoots where they can create a fantasy where have them feel like they're in it. So by doing that, you light it and you gel it and you make it moody looking, and you got to get them to feel the environment. The way to do that is by creating it and then just putting them in it, and then they kind of take on their persona. It helps them.
How was Blackie to work with?
He was great. Very, he knew what he wanted, and he knew that I got it, and he kind of gave me not too much direction, because I think I hit the nail on the head with everything. It was kind of pretty straightforward what we were trying to achieve.
You also did the cover for Dokken's Under Lock and Key, right?
Yeah, that was a funny one, huh? That was my doing. It kind of was, because I did the art direction on it, but I was just following instructions. They came up. Ray Brown did the outfits, their waiter outfits, as we called it, and each guy got a color. And 85 was like, that was the time when everyone was glammed up at the max. Ozzy was glammed up, even Poison, of course. That's where it came from. Motley Crue, Guns N' Roses. Everyone was, for those 2 years, 85, 86. That was the motion in rock, hard rock, and metal. They were just going for that. And then it quickly moved to street again when Guns kind of got street.
Yeah, I like that in your book where you're talking about the division. Even like you were doing the Poison photo shoot, you got mugged and lost those photos.
Yeah, that wasn't fun at all. Yeah.
It's really after that you talk about the next time. I wondered that if those photos that you lost, were they still kind of glammed? And then you go in to do the photos for the album, which I think is like 88 or 89. And you're like, yeah, okay, go ahead and get ready. And they're like, oh shit, we are ready, man.
Yeah, they were probably glad that film was lost, because, they didn't, it was in between the record. They didn't know where they wanted to go. They wanted to keep themselves known in the magazines, and they didn't want to give up and anything. They didn't want to give, there's so many bands coming out at the time. They just wanted to stay in the loop. So I did the photo shoot. And then at some point they made a conscious decision, obviously, to go no more street.
So they were more glammed out, those photos that were lost, just in that little short window they changed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and they weren't really glammed out, but they were just definitely, they were cropped, you know what I mean? They had a little hairspray in still, and a little bit of makeup, nothing like 85, but,
Of course, yeah.
They were toned down, but...
You did a whole bunch of photos of Dokken throughout their career, but did you ever notice any of the tension between the two guys, George and Don?
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah. I used to live at Don's house, so I heard it all the time, 24/7, They weren't shy about, it at all. Even in the press, they kind of made a joke about it.
So you lived at his house?
Yeah, he gave me keys. Yeah, we were buddies. He gave me keys, and when he was on the road, I stayed at his house, and when he was there, I stayed on the couch. Same with Kevin DuBrow.
When you're doing a photo shoot with Dokken, can you sense it while you're shooting them?
Yeah. I was the guy that kind of broke the ice and said everything's going to be okay, and joked around, and George really at that time he just was wanted to be a guitar player. He didn't want to do anything else. He liked taking photos, but more by himself than with a band. He just didn't feel comfortable, I don't think, in front of the camera with other people there and taking direction and just kind of being not himself. He was good in front of the camera on his own, but once you put him in there with a band, it was like pulling teeth.
And then Skid Row, I'd read Sebastian Bach's book, and he had talked about the glam photo that existed of the band prior to them, kind of coming out, and that Bon Jovi was like, what the fuck, you can't release that. And,
does he talk about that in his book?
Yeah, because when I saw it, I was like, that's got to be the photo.
Oh, because I forgot about, I even had that shoot, and then when I saw it, I was like, wow, we never used that one, and I didn't know he referenced it at all. So did he mention that I took that or anything like that?
I don't really remember, because at that time, I wasn't planning to interview you, so I didn't even really notice.
Yeah, when Sebastian saw that in the book, he freaked out. He loved it, Sebastian Sebastian loves the book. When I gave it to him, I put some extra pictures in there, and I wrote a nice note on the back, and put a Polaroid of me and him when we first met. When he got it, I thought he'd like call me up right away and say, "Hey, dude, you know, it either sucks or it's great or something." But I didn't hear from him. And then a week later, I said, "Did you get the book? You know, I didn't hear from you." And he goes, "Dude, it's sitting on our kitchen table. I'm going to look at it. Me and my wife are going to look at it together. I want to be in the right, perfect mood to open it up." Like, he knew it was going to be something like that he would like love, you know, especially there's a lot of pictures of him in there. And I told him there was. And, he was just looking for the right time, and I just forgot about it. And then 2 weeks, like maybe a week ago, he's like, "I just did this video. You're going to love it. It's funny as hell. Go on. I'm putting it on Facebook Live right now." So then I went and watched it live. You know, he edited it. He shot it and then put it in like a couple days later. And it was great. And he posted it, and he gets like 5,000 views a day. It's up to like almost 100,000 views. And it's this big commercial for my book. And then a day later, he calls me up, and he said, and he sent me a nice text saying, you know, that he read from front to end. He loved it. He goes, you know, not even one typo. And he was crying and laughing and, you know, everything in between, and didn't know that happened and this happened, you know. And he said, you know, he was very impressed with it, which coming from Sebastian meant a lot, because he's, you know, everyone thinks he's a wild and crazy guy, but he's very intelligent. And he's smart and articulate and well-read, and you know, so I respect his opinion, and he continues. He's very, he thought I did a great job.